I never thought my own parents would stoop so low. The day they abandoned my 8-year-old son Thomas at a church to teach me a lesson changed everything. All because I refused to give my irresponsible brother $30,000 for his foolproof investment scheme. Family is supposed to protect each other, not use innocent children as pawns in their twisted games. What happened next shocked even the police officers who took our statements. Before I dive into this heartbreaking story, where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up to toxic family members. Trust me, what happened 3 months later will make your jaw drop. Growing up in the Johnson household was like living in a kingdom with a clear hierarchy. My parents, Gerald and Nancy Johnson, ruled with strict control, and the roles were clearly defined from early childhood. I was the eldest, the responsible one, the one who needed to set an example. My younger brother Ethan, however, was the golden child, the cherished prince who could do no wrong. Our suburban Chicago home looked picture perfect from the outside, manicured lawn, white picket fence, and family portraits displaying beaming smiles. But inside those walls, the family dynamics were severely imbalanced. When Ethan crashed his bike, he got a newer, better one. When I achieved straight as it was simply expected. When Ethan barely passed his classes, he was rewarded for trying his best. "Miranda, you need to understand that your brother needs more encouragement," my mother would say whenever I questioned the obvious favoritism. "He's sensitive. You're naturally strong." This natural strength they attributed to me became my identity by default. I learned early that I couldn't rely on my parents for emotional support, so I became fiercely independent. While other teenagers were rebelling, I was working part-time jobs, saving money, and planning my escape through education. By some miracle, or perhaps through sheer determination, I secured a scholarship to study graphic design at a prestigious university. My parents' reaction? "That's nice, but are you sure that's practical? Ethan is thinking about business school." Despite their lukewarm support, I thrived in college. My design portfolio won awards, and I secured internships that eventually led to job offers. Meanwhile, Ethan dropped out of 3 different colleges, each time with a different excuse and each time bailed out financially by our parents. It was during my final year of college that I met Robert Anderson. He was studying architecture, and we met when his department collaborated with mine on a campus renovation project. Robert was everything my family wasn't: supportive, encouraging, and genuinely proud of my accomplishments. We dated for 2 years before getting married in a small ceremony that my parents attended with 4 smiles, and Ethan didn't show up to at all. Robert and I built a life together based on mutual respect and support. When we decided to have a child, it felt like we were creating the family we both deserved. Thomas came into our world 8 years ago, bringing joy I never thought possible. My parents finally seemed interested in my life, but only through their new role as grandparents. Then tragedy struck. 2 years ago, Robert was involved in a construction site accident. A structural failure that should never have happened took his life instantly. The world I had carefully built came crashing down around me and 6-year-old Thomas. Grief threatened to swallow me whole, but Thomas needed me, so I pushed through the pain, working twice as hard to maintain our graphic design business while being both mother and father to our son. My parents offered minimal support, occasional babysitting, and obligatory holiday invitations while focusing most of their energy and resources on Ethan's latest ventures. Despite everything, I maintained a strained relationship with my parents for Thomas's sake. He deserved to know his grandparents, and they seemed to genuinely care for him, even if their love came with conditions I couldn't quite articulate. Meanwhile, Ethan's pattern of financial irresponsibility continued into adulthood. There was the food truck venture that lasted 3 months, the revolutionary app that never made it past the concept stage, and the house-flipping business that flopped spectacularly. Each failure was cushioned by our parents' financial support, draining their retirement savings bit by bit. Family gatherings became increasingly tense affairs. While Thomas played innocently, oblivious to the undercurrents, I would overhear snippets of conversations about Ethan's next big thing. My parents aged visibly with each passing year, the stress of supporting their middle-aged son taking its toll. "You could help your brother, you know," my father mentioned during last Thanksgiving as we washed dishes. "You're doing well with your business." "Dad, I'm a single mom running a small design studio." "I'm not a bank," I replied, trying to keep my voice level. "Family helps family, Miranda. You've always been so selfish with your success." I let the comment slide as I had countless times before. For Thomas's sake, I smiled through the tension, never imagining how quickly things would deteriorate in the coming months. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon when Ethan showed up unannounced at my home office. Thomas was at school, and I was in the middle of a deadline for an important client. My brother's unexpected appearance, complete with designer clothes that I knew he couldn't afford, immediately set off warning bells. "Miranda, my favorite sister," he exclaimed, arms wide for a hug I reluctantly returned. "I'm your only sister, Ethan," I pointed out, gesturing toward the kitchen. "Coffee? I've got about 20 minutes before my next call." Ethan followed me, chatting about inconsequential things, the weather, a movie he'd seen, asking about Thomas, but I could sense the familiar build-up to something bigger. My brother never visited without wanting something. "So," he finally said after settling at my kitchen island with a mug of coffee, "I've got an amazing opportunity wanted to share with you first before I take it to my usual investors." I raised an eyebrow. "Usual investors? You mean mom and dad?" He waved dismissively. "This is different. This is guaranteed success. Cryptocurrency is the future, Miranda, and I got inside information on a new coin that's about to explode in value. For the next 15 minutes, Ethan outlined what he called a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to invest in a new cryptocurrency called SecureCoin. According to him, this revolutionary digital currency would triple in value within 6 months, possibly sooner. I just need some startup capital, he explained, sliding his phone across the counter to show me charts and projections that meant nothing to me. $30,000 should do it. I nearly choked on my coffee. $30,000? Ethan, that's insane. It's an investment, not a gift, he insisted, his tone shifting from enthusiastic to defensive. I'll pay you back with interest in 6 months. $50,000 guaranteed. And if it fails like your other ventures? I asked, already knowing the answer. His face darkened. It won't fail. I've done my research. These guys are legitimate, and they're only taking a limited number of investors. These guys? Who exactly are you working with? Ethan's vague explanation about industry experts and crypto pioneers only increased my skepticism. That evening, after he left with promises to send me more information, I did my own research. What I found confirmed my suspicions. SecureCoin had all the hallmarks of a potential scam, with anonymous founders and promises of returns that defied market logic. The next day, Ethan called repeatedly until I answered. So are you in? He asked, bypassing any greeting. I'm sorry, Ethan, but I can't loan you that kind of money, I said firmly. Everything I've found about SecureCoin raises red flags. I think you should reconsider. What followed was a tirade of accusations. I was selfish, unsupportive, and jealous of his potential success. When emotional manipulation didn't work, he switched to threats. Fine. I'm gonna tell mom and dad how you refuse to help family when you have the means. You've always been their disappointment anyway. Ethan, I'm a single mother with a mortgage and a business to run. Robert's life insurance went into Thomas's college fund. I don't have $30,000 to gamble on your latest scheme. He hung up without responding, and the fallout was immediate. My phone rang that evening. My parents, their voices heavy with disappointment. Miranda, how could you refuse to help your brother? My mother began without preamble. Mom, it's a questionable investment at best, a scam at worst. I'm trying to protect him and you. We've always known you were jealous of Ethan, my father interjected. But to sabotage his chance at success? That's a new low. Over the next few days, the calls continued, each one more accusatory than the last. I stood my ground, even offering to help Ethan review legitimate investment opportunities instead. My suggestions fell on deaf ears. The final conversation happened exactly 1 week after Ethan's initial visit. My father called, his voice cold and threatening. Your mother and I have decided to help Ethan ourselves. We're taking a second mortgage on our house because that's what family does. We support each other. Dad, please reconsider. I've looked into this company and we don't need your advice, he interrupted. But remember this, Miranda, family takes care of family. You've chosen to abandon your responsibilities to this family and there will be consequences. You'll learn your lesson. The line went dead, and I stared at my phone in disbelief. The threat seemed hollow. What consequences could there possibly be for refusing to loan money I didn't have for an investment I believed was fraudulent? I dismissed it as typical emotional manipulation and focused on my work and Thomas. Little did I know that their idea of consequences would involve my innocent child. The school dismissal bell had rung 20 minutes ago. I stood outside Thomas's elementary school, my heart racing faster with each passing minute. The playground had emptied, the crossing guard was preparing to leave, and there was still no sign of my son. Mrs. Anderson? Thomas's teacher, Brenda Wilson, approached with concern etched on her face. Is everything okay? Thomas was picked up early today. My blood ran cold. What? By whom? Your parents, she replied, confusion clear in her expression. They had the family pickup authorization you filed at the beginning of the year. They said there was a family emergency. The world tilted beneath my feet. I hadn't spoken to my parents since our heated argument about Ethan's investment scheme. Why would they pick up Thomas without telling me? I called my parents repeatedly as I drove home, hoping to find them and Thomas there. No answer. Their house? No answer. My calls went straight to voicemail. Panic rising, I called everyone I could think of. Neighbors, family, friends, even Ethan, who also didn't pick up. By evening, I had organized a search with neighbors, called hospitals, and was preparing to contact the police when my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Hello? Is this Miranda Anderson? A man's voice asked. Yes. Who's this? This is Father Michael from St. Augustine Church. I believe I have your son here. The 15-minute drive to the church was the longest of my life. Racing through the doors, I found Thomas sitting in a small office, a kind-looking priest beside him, and a female church volunteer providing him with hot chocolate. Mommy, Thomas cried, running into my arms. I held him tight, tears streaming down my face. Are you hurt? Are you okay? I asked, checking him over frantically. I'm okay, he whispered. But Grandma and Grandpa said you didn't want me anymore. They said you chose money over family and that I had to stay here until you learned your lesson. Father Michael gently explained that my parents had left Thomas at the church steps with a backpack containing a change of clothes and a note explaining he was temporarily in need of shelter while his mother sorted out her priorities. The priest had found the situation suspicious and managed to get my contact information from Thomas. The police arrived shortly after, taking statements from all of us. Officer Diana Murray was especially gentle with Thomas, but her eyes hardened when I explained the background situation with my brother's loan request and my parents' subsequent threat. So they essentially kidnap your son from school and abandon him at a church as retaliation for not giving your brother money, she clarified, her pen pausing over her notepad. When she put it that way, the reality of what my parents had done hit me full force. It wasn't just a family disagreement anymore. It was a criminal act involving an innocent child. That night, after the police left with promises to follow up with my parents, Thomas and I sat in his bed surrounded by his favorite stuffed animals. He seemed physically fine but confused and shaken. "Mommy, why did Grandma and Grandpa leave me? Did I do something wrong?" "No, baby, absolutely not," I assured him, stroking his hair. "Grandma and Grandpa made a very, very bad choice. They're confused about some grown-up things, but none of this is your fault. Are they going to jail?" he asked, wide-eyed. I hesitated, not knowing how to answer. "I don't know. But what I do know is that you're safe now, and I won't let anyone take you away again." Despite my reassurances, Thomas woke screaming 3 times that night, terrified of being abandoned again. I lay beside him, my anger growing with each nightmare. How dare they use my child as a pawn in their twisted game? The next morning brought a flurry of activity. A social worker named Rebecca Martinez arrived to interview Thomas and assess his well-being. She was professional but compassionate, explaining that child services needed to ensure Thomas was safe and properly cared for. "We understand you're the victim here, Mrs. Anderson," she assured me, "but we have protocols for any case involving child abandonment." Meanwhile, calls and texts flooded in from family members, not with support, but with accusations. Somehow, my parents had spun a narrative in which I had refused to help the family in crisis, and they had merely been watching Thomas while I sorted myself out. The truth was being buried under a mountain of family politics. My best friend Alicia Thompson arrived without being asked, bringing groceries and offering to help with Thomas while I dealt with the authorities. "This is insane, Miranda," she said as she made us lunch. "Have your parents lost their minds?" "Apparently," I replied, scrolling through my phone to discover I'd been blocked by my parents, Ethan, and several extended family members on all social media platforms. "They've completely cut me off and are spreading who knows what lies about me." "What can I do to help?" Alicia asked. "Just being here helps," I told her honestly. "I need to find a lawyer and probably a therapist for Thomas and myself." By the week's end, I had secured the services of attorney Patricia Hernandez, who specialized in family law and had scheduled appointments for Thomas with Dr. Wesley Bennett, a child psychologist recommended by the school counselor. The financial strain was immediate. Legal fees, therapy costs, and reduced work hours as I focused on Thomas's well-being quickly depleted my emergency savings. But the emotional cost was even higher. Thomas had become clingy and anxious, afraid to go to school or let me out of his sight. One unexpected bright spot emerged from the darkness. Thomas's school community rallied around us. His teacher organized a meal train, the principal implemented additional security measures for pickup, and parents I barely knew offered playdates and support. Similarly, my clients showed remarkable understanding. When I explained I needed flexible deadlines due to a family emergency, most responded with compassion rather than frustration. "Take care of your boy," my largest client wrote. "The work can wait." As the initial shock began to fade, the painful reality set in. My parents, the people who should have been our strongest supporters, had committed an unforgivable act. They had traumatized their own grandson to punish me for not funding Ethan's scheme. And I was left wondering, how do you explain to an 8-year-old that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest? The courthouse loomed large and imposing as I clutched Thomas's therapy appointment card in my hand. Attorney Patricia Hernandez had called an emergency meeting to discuss filing formal charges against my parents. The weight of the decision pressed on my chest like a stone. "You understand that once we file these charges, there's no turning back," Patricia explained, her office filled with family law certificates and children's drawings from grateful clients. "Child abandonment is a serious offense. Your parents could face jail time." "They left my 8-year-old at a church with a backpack and walked away," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "They told him I didn't want him anymore. They traumatized him to punish me." Still, my finger hesitated over the signature line. These were my parents, flawed and misguided as they were. The complexity of emotions swirling through me made it hard to breathe. "Take your time," Patricia said gently. "This is a big decision." "What would you do?" I asked her. She removed her glasses and leaned forward. "Miranda, I can't answer that for you. But I can tell you that in my 20 years of practice, I've never seen children recover from trauma by pretending it didn't happen." I signed the papers. That afternoon, Thomas sat across from Dr. Wesley Bennett, carefully constructing a scene with toy figures. His therapy sessions had become the anchor of our weeks. "Thomas has placed the child figure inside a box today, Dr. Bennett noted quietly to me as we observed. "He's processing feelings of abandonment through symbolic play. Is he getting better?" I whispered. "Healing isn't linear," he replied. "But he's expressing his feelings rather than internalizing them, which is positive. He's a resilient boy." Resilient or not, Thomas's nightmares continued. He would wake screaming, convinced his grandparents were taking him away again. School mornings became battles of tears and anxiety. His teacher reported he rarely played with friends at recess anymore, preferring to stay close to supervising adults. While Thomas fought his internal battles, I faced external ones. The charges against my parents had sparked a family civil war. Cousins I'd grown up with sent scathing messages about tearing the family apart. My Aunt Catherine, who had always seemed kind, left a voicemail calling me ungrateful and vindictive. The silence from others hurt just as much as the attacks. People who had been at every holiday gathering, who had watched Thomas grow up, suddenly couldn't find the courage to reach out. Then came an unexpected ally. My father's sister, Aunt Helen, whom I'd rarely seen since childhood due to some old family rift, called me out of the blue. "Miranda, it's Helen. I heard what happened through the grapevine, and I wanted you to know, you're doing the right thing." We met for coffee the next day, and Helen revealed generations of toxic family patterns I'd never known about. "Your father was the golden child too," she explained. "Our parents drained their savings supporting his failed ventures while telling me I needed to stand on my own 2 feet. Sound familiar?" "Too familiar," I admitted. "I cut contact after they refused to help with my husband's medical bills but gave your father money for a boat the same month. Best decision I ever made." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Breaking the cycle is hard, but necessary. Helen's support fortified me for what came next, the first court appearance. Walking into the courtroom and seeing my parents sitting with their lawyer felt surreal. They looked smaller somehow, older, but their expressions showed no remorse. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. My father stared straight ahead, jaw set in familiar stubbornness. The proceedings were brief, but excruciating. Statements were read, including Father Michael's account of finding Thomas abandoned on church property. My parents pleaded not guilty, their lawyer arguing they had left Thomas in a safe haven, out of concern for his well-being while I was having a personal crisis, a complete fabrication. Outside the courthouse, Ethan ambushed me in the parking lot. "You happy now?" he snarled, walking my path to the car where Alicia waited with Thomas. "Mom and Dad could go to jail because you're too selfish to help family. They kidnapped and abandoned my son, Ethan." I shot back. "Don't you dare make this about money. They mortgaged their house for me because you wouldn't help," he continued, his face flushed with anger. "Now they might lose everything. That was their choice. Using Thomas as a pawn was their choice too." Ethan's expression shifted from anger to something uglier. "You always thought you were better than us. Well, enjoy your precious moral high ground while Mom and Dad lose their home." The revelation that my parents had actually gone through with mortgaging their house hit me harder than I expected. Despite everything, I couldn't take satisfaction in their financial troubles, but I also couldn't accept responsibility for decisions they'd made as adults. As the weeks passed, the legal process ground slowly forward while our healing seemed stuck in place. Thomas's birthday came and went without a card or call from his grandparents. The silence was deafening, and explaining it to him broke my heart all over again. "Sometimes people we love make choices that hurt us," I tried to explain as we shared birthday cake. "It doesn't mean we did anything wrong. Will they ever love me again?" he asked, his small voice steady, but his eyes betraying his pain. "They do love you," I assured him, though I wasn't entirely convinced. "They just don't know how to show it the right way." The stress took its toll on all aspects of our lives. Anonymous calls in the middle of the night, a brick through our living room window with a note calling me a family destroyer. The school reporting a strange man asking questions about Thomas's schedule, leading me to install an expensive security system I couldn't really afford. Through it all, Dr. Bennett's words became my mantra. "You're not responsible for other people's actions, only your response to them." My response was to create as much stability for Thomas as possible while trying to rebuild my own sense of security. I considered moving to a new neighborhood, perhaps even a new city, but Thomas had already lost so much. Uprooting him from his school and the few supportive relationships we had seemed cruel. Instead, I focused on redefining family for both of us. Family isn't always blood. I told Thomas one night as we made picture frames for photos of Alicia and her husband, who had been there for us unfailingly. Sometimes family is the people who show up when things are hard. As the 3-month mark of the abandonment approached, I felt a shift within myself. The initial shock and betrayal had hardened into something more resolute, a determination to protect my son and myself from toxic relationships, regardless of blood ties. I was no longer waiting for my parents to recognize their wrong and make amends. I was moving forward without them. It was a painful liberation, this acknowledgement that family could be both your greatest wound and your deepest loss. But somewhere in that pain, I found clarity. Thomas deserved better than conditional love, and so did I. I was reviewing client designs when a news alert flashed across my laptop screen. Major cryptocurrency scam busted. Investors lose millions. With trembling fingers, I clicked the link, already knowing what I would find. The article detailed a sophisticated fraud operation centered around SecureCoin, the very investment Ethan had been so desperate to join. Federal agents had arrested the ringleaders, who had allegedly swindled over $20 million from unsuspecting investors with promises of astronomical returns. My phone rang almost immediately. It was Patricia. "Have you seen the news?" she asked without preamble. "I'm looking at it now," I replied, scanning the article for any mention of Ethan's name. "The FBI wants to speak with you," she continued. "Apparently, your brother's name has come up in their investigation." My stomach dropped. As a victim or a perpetrator? They wouldn't say over the phone. "They're sending an agent tomorrow morning." The next day, Agent Marcus Reynolds sat at my kitchen table, his manner professional, but not unkind. "To be clear, Mrs. Anderson, we're investigating the activities of SecureCoin's operators. Your brother, Ethan Johnson, appears to have been a mid-level recruiter, bringing in new investors for a commission." The realization hit me like a physical blow. So, he wasn't just investing himself. He was recruiting others, including me. "We believe so. The $30,000 he attempted to secure from you would have qualified him for a higher commission tier. Agent Reynolds flipped through his notes. Did he mention specific return percentages? Guarantees of profit? I nodded, recalling Ethan's enthusiastic pitch. He promised it would triple in 6 months. Classic red flag, the agent noted. No legitimate investment can guarantee those returns. After answering the FBI's questions, I sat in stunned silence. Ethan hadn't just been duped. He had actively participated in duping others. Had my parents known? Had they given him their house equity, knowing it was for a scam? My questions were partially answered the following week when Patricia called with news. Your parents' house is in foreclosure, she said. Apparently, they missed several mortgage payments. The money they gave Ethan, I breathed. Likely, Miranda, this doesn't change anything legally regarding Thomas, but I thought you should know. I thanked her and hung up, conflicted emotions swirling within me. Part of me felt vindicated. Their choice to support Ethan's scheme had consequences, just as they'd warned me about consequences for not helping family. But another part felt a deep sadness for the spiral of poor decisions that had led to this point. 2 days later, a knock at my door revealed my father standing on the porch, looking haggard and aged beyond his years. Dad, I said, automatically stepping forward before catching myself. Thomas was at a playdate with Alicia's son, thankfully not home to witness this unexpected visit. Miranda, he replied, his voice lacking its usual authoritative tone. May I come in? Against my better judgment, I let him in, leading him to the living room but deliberately choosing separate seats. What do you want? I asked, not bothering with pleasantries. He looked around, taking in the home I'd built with Robert, now maintained alone. The bank is taking the house, he said finally. Your mother is staying with your cousin Susan for now. I heard, I replied, waiting for whatever came next. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, he continued, staring at his hands. Ethan assured us the investment was solid. Time sensitive. A sure thing. Nothing is a sure thing, Dad. Especially not when it promises to triple your money in 6 months. He looked up sharply. You knew it was a scam, didn't you? That's why you wouldn't give him the money. I suspected it was too good to be true. Yes, I tried to warn you. You could have tried harder, he snapped, a flash of the old Gerald Johnson breaking through his defeated demeanor. Like you tried harder to not kidnap and abandon my 8-year-old son? I retorted, anger rising. What are you really doing here, Dad? His shoulders slumped. We need help, Miranda. Your mother and we don't have anywhere to go. The audacity of the request left me momentarily speechless. After everything they'd done, they expected me to take them in? You left my son, your grandson, alone at a church. You told him I didn't want him anymore. He still has nightmares. And, now you want my help? We made a mistake, he admitted, though his tone suggested he considered it a minor error in judgment rather than a traumatic act of cruelty. We were desperate. Ethan convinced us his opportunity would solve everything if we just invested enough. A mistake, I echoed incredulously. A mistake is forgetting to pick someone up. A mistake is burning dinner. What you did was calculated emotional abuse of an innocent child. We're still your parents, Miranda, he said, his voice hardening. After everything we've done for you. Done for me, I interrupted. What exactly have you done for me that wasn't also done twice over for Ethan? When Robert died, you babysat Thomas twice. Twice, Dad. I was a widowed mother trying to keep a business afloat, and you were too busy funding Ethan's food truck to help. The front door opened, and Thomas's voice called out, Mom, I'm home. Before he appeared in the living room doorway with Alicia behind him, her expression changing from cheerful to concerned as she assessed the situation. Thomas froze when he saw his grandfather, his small body tensing visibly. Grandpa. The fear in my son's voice crystallized everything for me. Dad, you need to leave. Now. Thomas, come give your grandpa a hug, my father said, ignoring me completely. Thomas backed away, moving closer to Alicia. No, thank you, he whispered. My father's face darkened. See what you've done? Turned him against his family. Alicia, could you take Thomas to his room for a minute? I asked, my voice deadly calm. Once they were gone, I turned back to my father. You did this, not me. You destroyed his trust when you abandoned him, and now you have the nerve to blame me. Your mother and I need somewhere to stay, Miranda, just until we figure things out. No, I said firmly. I'll not bring that toxicity back into our lives. Thomas deserves better. I deserve better. So, you'll abandon your own parents? After all we've sacrificed for this family, I'm not abandoning you. I'm establishing boundaries. There's a difference. He stood, anger replacing his earlier dejection. Your brother was right about you. Always thought you were better than the rest of us. As he walked toward the door, I called after him. Dad, I do hope you and Mom land on your feet, but it won't be by using me or Thomas ever again. After he left, I sat with Thomas, explaining as best I could that sometimes adults make bad choices when they're scared or angry. Like when I hit Joey last year when he took my action figure? Thomas asked. Something like that, I agreed, but bigger. Grandma and Grandpa made very big mistakes, and now they have to deal with those consequences. Are they going to be homeless? He asked, his compassion showing through despite his fear. No, sweetie. They have other family helping them, but they won't be staying with us. Good, he said quietly. They scare me now. His simple honesty broke my heart all over again. Later that evening, an anonymous email arrived in my inbox with the subject line, Your brother knew. The attached documents showed correspondence between Ethan and the SecureCoin founders, discussing recruitment strategies and commission structures. Most damning was an email where Ethan specifically mentioned getting his parents to remortgage their house, with a chilling line, "They're good for at least $150,000. Working on my sister too, but she's more skeptical." I forwarded the evidence to Patricia, who confirmed it should go to the FBI. But before I did, I faced an ethical dilemma. Should I warn my parents that their golden child had knowingly led them into financial ruin? The decision was complicated by the knowledge that they would likely never believe me over Ethan. Some family dynamics never change, no matter how much evidence exists to the contrary. After consulting with Patricia and Dr. Bennett, I decided to arrange a family meeting on neutral ground. Patricia offered her office conference room with the additional security of her staff nearby if needed. The FBI investigation into SecureCoin was proceeding, but Agent Reynolds agreed to delay interviewing my parents until after our meeting. "You're not obligated to give them this courtesy," Patricia reminded me as we prepared the conference room. "They certainly didn't extend any to you or Thomas." "I know," I sighed. "But I need to do this my way. I need to look them in the eyes when they learn what Ethan did." She nodded, understanding my need for closure, if not agreeing with my methods. My parents arrived first, looking worn and diminished. My mother, Nancy, usually impeccably presented, wore mismatched earrings and hadn't styled her hair. My father's defiance from our last encounter had faded into something closer to resignation. Ethan arrived last, striding in with unearned confidence, designer sunglasses perched on his head despite the overcast day. His smile faltered when he saw Patricia sitting beside me. "What's this, an intervention?" he joked weakly, taking the seat farthest for me. "Something like that," I replied coolly. "Thank you all for coming. Can we make this quick?" Ethan asked, checking his watch. "I have a meeting with investors later." The irony wasn't lost on any of us. "More cryptocurrency investors?" I asked, opening my laptop, like the ones from SecureCoin. His expression flickered briefly before settling back into practiced nonchalance. "That situation was unfortunate. I was a victim too, you know." "Were you?" I turned my laptop around, displaying the first email I'd received, because these communications suggest otherwise. My mother gasped as she read the screen. "What is this?" Evidence that Ethan wasn't just an investor in SecureCoin. He was actively recruiting new victims, including his own family, for commission. "That's absurd," my father blustered, though he leaned forward to read the emails. "Where did you get this?" "It was sent to me anonymously," I explained. "I verified its authenticity with a digital forensics expert. It's real." Ethan's facade cracked. "Those are taken out of context. Everyone was going to make money, except it was a Ponzi scheme," I countered. "The only people making money were the founders and their recruiters, like you." My mother's hand trembled as she pointed to the line about remortgaging their house. "You knew? You knew we might lose our home." "Mom, I was trying to help," Ethan pleaded. "If you had invested sooner before the feds got involved." "The feds?" My father's face paled. "The federal government is investigating this?" "The FBI has already arrested the ringleaders," I confirmed. "Agent Reynolds wants to speak with all of you." I convinced him to wait until after this meeting. The revelation hit like a thunderclap. My mother began to cry silently while my father stared at Ethan with dawning comprehension. "We gave you everything," he said quietly. "Our savings, our house, our retirement." Ethan's demeanor shifted from defensive to desperate. "It wasn't supposed to collapse like this. I was going to make it right before anyone found out." "With what money?" I asked. "The money you were trying to get for me? More victims?" He had no answer for that. My father turned to me, his expression unreadable. "Why are you showing us this? To gloat? To say, 'I told you so'?" "No," I said firmly. "I'm showing you this because despite everything, you're still my parents. You deserve to know the truth before the FBI interview. And because I wanted you to understand that when I refused to give Ethan money, I was trying to protect all of us, including him." "So, what now?" my mother asked, dabbing at her eyes. "Are we supposed to thank you for this revelation?" Her bitterness stung but didn't surprise me. Decades of family dynamics wouldn't change in one meeting. "Now we discuss how we move forward," I said, straightening my shoulders. "I've prepared a document outlining my terms for any future relationship between us and Thomas." I distributed copies of a simple agreement Patricia had helped me draft. It outlined basic expectations. No unsupervised contact with Thomas until he personally requested it. Family therapy with Dr. Bennett before any regular visitation could resume. A formal apology to Thomas and their cooperation with the FBI investigation. "This is ridiculous," my father scoffed, pushing the paper away. "We don't need your permission to see our grandson." "Actually, you do," Patricia interjected professionally. "Given the documented abandonment, any court would grant Miranda full discretion over contact between you and Thomas." "You're punishing us for one mistake," my mother protested. "It wasn't a mistake," I corrected her. "It was a choice, a deliberate choice to use an innocent child as a weapon. And it wasn't just one incident. It was the culmination of a lifetime of choices that prioritized Ethan over everything, including your own financial security and Thomas's emotional well-being." I took a deep breath before continuing. "I'm offering conditional forgiveness and a path forward. Whether you take it is your choice, but understand this, I will never again allow Thomas to be collateral damage in this family's dysfunction." My father stood abruptly. "We're not signing this." "Come on, Nancy." My mother hesitated, looking between my father and me, before slowly rising to follow him. "The FBI will be in touch." I called after them as they left. Whether you cooperate or not is your choice, but it will affect the outcome. Ethan remained seated, staring at the damning emails still displayed on my laptop. You could have deleted these, he said quietly. Protected me? Like you protected our parents? Or me? Or Thomas? He flinched. I messed up. I got in over my head with gambling debts. Secure Coin seemed like a way out. His admission surprised me. Gambling. Started in college. Got worse after each failed business. The more I lost, the more desperate I got. He rubbed his face tiredly. I never meant for it to go this far, but it did, Ethan. And now we're all paying the price. He nodded, the bravado finally completely gone. What happens now with the FBI? I don't know, I answered honestly. That depends on what you tell them, how cooperative you are, and what evidence they already have against you. And us? You and me? I considered the question carefully. I can't have you in my life right now, Ethan. Maybe not ever. But I'll help you get treatment for your gambling addiction if you want it. That's all I can offer. He seemed about to argue, then deflated. I'd like that. The treatment, I mean. As he stood to leave, there was a commotion in the hallway. Agent Reynolds appeared at the door with 2 other agents. Ethan Johnson? He asked formally. Ethan nodded, resignation washing over his features. We have some questions regarding your involvement with Secure Coin operations. Would you mind coming with us? I watched as my brother was escorted out, not in handcuffs, but clearly not free to refuse. The last glimpse I had of him was a backward glance, part apology, part accusation, before the door closed behind him. Patricia placed a hand on my shoulder. You did what you had to do for Thomas and yourself. I nodded, emotions too complex to name swirling within me. It wasn't victory I felt or even vindication. It was something closer to grief, mourning the family I thought I had, while accepting the reality of the one I actually did. 6 months after the confrontation at Patricia's office, Thomas and I stood in the living room of our new home, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and the promise of fresh starts. We hadn't moved far, just enough to feel like a new chapter while keeping Thomas at the same school with his supportive friends and teachers. Can I put my space posters up in my new room? Thomas asked, already looking more relaxed than he had in months. Absolutely, I smiled. And maybe we can add some new ones too. The decision to move had come after Ethan's legal troubles finalized. He had avoided jail time by cooperating fully with the investigation, but received 5 years of probation, mandatory gambling addiction treatment, and substantial community service hours. My parents had lost their house but managed to secure a small apartment with help from my cousin Susan. As for their relationship with Thomas and me, progress had been glacially slow. They had refused the family therapy sessions initially, still maintaining they had done nothing truly wrong. But as Ethan's legal situation unfolded and the full extent of the Secure Coin scam became public, their position became increasingly difficult to defend. 3 months after our confrontation, my mother had reached out hesitantly, asking if she could send Thomas a birthday card. It was a small step, but significant. The card arrived with no manipulation or guilt-tripping, just a simple message of love and a modest gift card. Thomas had studied the card carefully before asking, "Does this mean Grandma isn't mad at me anymore?" "She was never mad at you, buddy," I assured him. "Adults sometimes make bad choices when they're upset, but that doesn't mean it was your fault, Doctor." Bennett had been invaluable in helping Thomas process his feelings about his grandparents. "He's developing healthy boundaries," he explained during one of our update sessions. "He's not afraid to express what makes him uncomfortable, which is remarkable progress for a child his age." That progress manifested in Thomas requesting a supervised visit with my mother after receiving 2 more similarly appropriate cards. We met at a neutral playground with Dr. Bennett present. The visit lasted only 30 minutes, but ended without tears or trauma. A small victory we celebrated with ice cream afterward. My father remained more resistant, his pride preventing him from acknowledging the damage done. We had spoken briefly on the phone twice, conversations that remained stilted and surface level. His journey would be longer, if it happened at all. The most unexpected development had been a letter from Ethan, sent from his treatment facility 3 months into his program. "I'm working through the 12 steps, he had written. "Making amends is part of that process, but I know words aren't enough for what I've done. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know I'm finally facing my addiction and the damage it's caused." I had read the letter several times, unsure how to respond. Finally, I sent a brief note acknowledging his effort and wishing him success in his recovery, making no promises about our future relationship. Professionally, things had taken a surprising turn for the better. The focused attention I'd given my business during this difficult period, perhaps as a form of control in an otherwise chaotic time, had resulted in new clients and recognition in the design community. I had even hired an assistant, allowing me to maintain a healthier work-life balance. "Mom, can we invite Auntie Alicia and Uncle James for dinner once we're unpacked?" Thomas asked, interrupting my thoughts as he carefully arranged his books on a new shelf. "That's a great idea," I agreed. "And maybe we can ask them about being your godparents officially?" His face lit up. "Really? That would be awesome." The suggestion wasn't spontaneous. Alicia and James had been our rock throughout the ordeal, providing practical and emotional support without hesitation. When I tentatively broached the subject of making them Thomas's legal guardians in case anything happened to me, they had accepted with tears and hugs. "Family isn't just blood," Alicia had reminded me, echoing my own words to Thomas. That philosophy had become the foundation of our rebuilding. We had created new traditions: Sunday game nights with friends, monthly community volunteer days, and quarterly adventure weekends where we explored something new together. As evening fell on our first night in the new house, Thomas and I sat on the back porch watching fireflies emerge in the twilight. "Mom, do you think people can change?" he asked suddenly. Replied, "But it takes time and real effort." "Why do you ask?" "I was thinking about Grandma and Grandpa and Uncle Ethan. Do you think they'll change?" I wrapped an arm around his shoulders. "I hope so, buddy, but the important thing is that we've changed. We're stronger now, and we know how to protect ourselves better. And we have our chosen family," he added, using the term Dr. Bennett had introduced. "Exactly. People who love us for exactly who we are, not what we can do for them." As Thomas drifted off to sleep that night in his new room, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and space posters, I reflected on our journey. The past 9 months had been the most challenging of my life, but also the most clarifying. I had learned that standing firm in the face of manipulation wasn't selfish, it was necessary. That boundaries weren't punishments, but protections. That family could be both your deepest wound and your greatest healing, depending on who you included in that definition. Most importantly, I had shown Thomas that love doesn't require sacrificing your self-respect or safety. That lesson alone was worth every painful moment of our ordeal. 2 weeks after moving in, we hosted a housewarming gathering. Alicia and James, neighbors from our old community, colleagues who had become friends, Thomas's teacher Brenda, Dr. Bennett and his wife, even Aunt Helen who had become a regular presence in our lives. The house filled with laughter and genuine warmth. As I looked around at the faces of our chosen family, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in years. The journey wasn't over. Healing rarely follows a neat timeline, but we were moving forward on our own terms, surrounded by people who truly had our best interests at heart. And that, I realized, was the greatest lesson in all of this. True family protects each other, supports each other, and loves without conditions or manipulation. Sometimes you're born into that kind of family, and sometimes, like Thomas and me, you have to build it yourself. I'm curious what you would have done in my situation. Would you have pressed charges against your parents for abandoning your child? Would you have given your brother the money he asked for? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this story meaningful, please like and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences. Remember, sometimes creating boundaries isn't about cutting people off, it's about protecting what matters most. Thank you for listening to our journey, and I hope it helps anyone facing similar family challenges.